All right, good evening and welcome to the May 1st City of Federal Way Council meeting. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, thank you everybody for being here. We've got a good attendance. It's always great to see people here. And we've got a crowded agenda. So first, we've got the Arts Commission, High School Art Gallery at City Hall, and we've got Chair Hershmann, who I'll ask to come to the podium. Sir?
Thank you. Mayor Farrell, members of the City Council, Federal Way citizens, I am Dan Hershmann, Chair of the Federal Way Arts Commission. Tonight, I will be reporting on the work of the Arts Commission this past year and going forward. I will also conclude with a recognition of young artists from our high schools who have exhibited their work in the City Hall Gallery this past month. The City of Federal Way Arts Commission is a group of 9 city-appointed volunteers whose task is to develop and oversee the city's various art programs. We have some commissioners here tonight. Could I have them stand up for a moment and be recognized? If any members of the community here would like to join us or find out more information about what we do on the Arts Commission, please check the Art Commission's webpage at thecityofFederalway.com. The work of the Arts Commission is carried out in monthly meetings and in subcommittees created to address items in the work plan. There are many different projects that make up the plan, so I will organize my comments around its organizing goals. These goals are to support the civic life of our citizens through the arts, establish Federal Way as a unique arts community that reflects our rich culture and diversity, and engage Federal Way youth in community arts events. Here are the major components of Goal 1. For the year 2018, we have provided $40,000 in total support to a number of arts organizations through the 2018 Contract for Services program. These organizations provide our citizens with rich arts experiences as both viewers and participants. We also maintain 2 art galleries in city buildings. One is in City Hall right outside, the other in the Knutson Theater at Dumas Bay. Gallery artists are chosen through the annual Arts Alive competition held each September. We are proud to have provided a gallery forum for these artists to display their works in 2018. The Arts Commission also sponsors and provides volunteer help for a number of local community events held throughout the year. The first event of the year is the Blue Poppy Day Festival, held at the Rhododendron Botanical Garden. This festival brings art vendors to a lovely outdoor setting and is timed to coincide with the arrival of the blue poppy blossoms located on the grounds of the garden. There will also be live music. This year we will feature performances by the Federal Way Youth Symphony Orchestra and the jazz duo Deux Gitans, or Two Gypsies. Our biggest event of the year is the Red, White, and Blues Festival in Celebration Park, a day-long family event with arts and crafts, games, music, and of course, the fireworks show. In the months of July and August, there are free outdoor concerts on Wednesday evenings at Steel Lake Park called Summer Sounds. New for this year, there will also be a free Shakespeare in the Park event at Steel Lake Park in August. The Seattle Shakespeare Company will be performing Shakespeare's timeless comedy, The Merry Wives of Windsor. Hopefully there will be no bears at Steel Lake. And lastly, there is the annual Christmas tree lighting held in the new Town Square Park, featuring musical performances and a visit from Santa and Mrs. Claus. In 2017, we began a Piano in the Park program at Town Square Park. We will repeat this project again this year with another piano prepared by another artist by the beginning of June. This proved very popular with all kinds of musicians, young and old. Our second goal is to establish Federal Way as a unique arts community that reflects our rich culture and diversity. The recent completion of the Performing Arts and Events Center established our community as a major center for the performing arts in our region. The PAC is truly a state-of-the-art venue for artists both here at home and from around the world. The Arts Commission played a key role in the selection process of the PAC's public art piece, Halebos Harmonics. It's been a pleasure to watch this artwork move from a proposed concept to a finished work. The Commission is also very proud of the ongoing Traffic Graphics program. While many communities decorate the utility boxes, none can compare with the creativity of ours, thanks to the leadership of Commissioner Gary Gillespie. Gary, you out there? Gary Gillespie. The process that goes into the creation of these boxes is really quite interesting. Artists design colorful art pieces that are digitized and then printed onto large sheets of vinyl that are wrapped around pre-selected utility boxes. Our latest installation is called You Forgot Your Coffee, located at the intersection of 312th and Dash Point Road. Our third goal is one of engaging our city's youth in the city arts programs. Federal Way is all about families, and the future of our city rests in our youth. Here are a number of ways that the Commission is working to engage our younger citizens. First, each year the Municipal Court and the Arts Commission sponsor a K-12 art competition with the theme, What Liberty Means to Me. Judge Larson has described the purpose of the contest as being in two parts. The first is to provide a way for youth to engage with the court through their art. The second part is to make the court a less intimidating place for families visiting the courtrooms through the display of student artwork. The Arts Commission is given the task of judging submissions. The selected winners will be awarded a cash prize and their work will be displayed in the court. There are awards for both elementary submissions and secondary. These past few months, we have also been working with our sister city of Hachinohe, Japan, on a collaborative project to celebrate the 25th year of our sister city relationship. The Hachinohe Art Museum will produce a photo gallery display about everyday life in Hachinohe to show in the PAC this December. They will include a workshop for high school photography students put on by curators from their art museum. Our students' work will be sent back to Japan for display in the Hachinohe Art Museum. And finally, to conclude tonight, I would like to honor and recognize the young artists that are here tonight. For the past 6 weeks, we have featured works by local high school artists in the City Hall Gallery. Those pieces were selected by art staff at Decatur, Federal Way, Thomas Jefferson, and Todd Beamer High Schools. I'd like the following students to come up to the front to receive a certificate of recognition as I call their names. Lucia Ruiz Amador. Hallie Cromwell. Catherine Wynn. Samantha Mendoza Rojas. Patricia Orsioli. Glenna Park. And Henry Youngjohn. I'd also like to ask Decatur art teacher Christina Smothers to come on up and be recognized. And now could I have the parents of these students come on up too?
And Tyler. Why don't we have everybody shift here and we'll have council stand up and do a big group picture.
Everybody shift to the left.
Just want to come in a little bit?
Well, I need to be taller.
Here. Here,
I'll
use
use this one.
this one. All right.
Not much taller.
There we go.
I'll give you one, Martin.
Tina, come on. Join the picture.
Come on, get in the picture.
Here, you want to share my stool?
No, I'm fine. Martin and I'll stand on tiptoes.
There you go.
All right, congratulations. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your work.
Mr. Mayor, I have to do a little shout out for Decatur High School
You bet.
since I'm a class of '03.
All right. Councilmember Moore? And then,
Yeah, I
Deputy
actually
Mayor.
just did it a few seconds ago, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to do a shout out for number 2 to Decatur High School and to our high school students for following your passion, which I hope is your passion, for the art and being engaged in your community through art. I think you've seen in our PowerPoint how big of an impact art can really play in our communities, so I just really appreciate that. And to the commission, I was going to say, Mr. Mayor, that this is the second time I've seen a commission put together a PowerPoint with very clear goals and objectives and some of the activities lined up. So I'm just really impressed, with how our commissions have changed over the years and how they've become a stronger commission, whether it's the Diversity Commission or the Arts Commission. I'm just really impressed. So thank you.
thank you. Deputy Mayor Honda?
Thank you. And I would like to shout out to Henry, who's from Federal Way High School. Yay, and he's in the Key Club, of which I'm advisor, so awesome.
That's great. Thank you. And it's great to see, students engaged in art, and it's great to see so many of them here along with their parents. And it's so much fun. Actually, my 10-year-old son has been going, when he comes to City Hall, he likes to go back and forth in this hallway and take a look at the art. And it's just, when people come through here, hundreds of people throughout the course of a day, and they can see the art there, and it really speaks volumes about, our community and you and the future of Federal Way. I would also like to give a special shout out to Gary Gillespie. And, it was just, gosh, I can't believe it's been 4 years now when he first came to my office and had a laptop computer, and he was so excited about this idea and about really wrapping up these really unsightly boxes through our community, and about creating art throughout the community. And it is really exciting. I mean, my favorite is Sasquatch on Pack Highway at 352nd, and you don't see it at first. You've got to go by a few times, and then I just saw the one over by Lakota on 312th just the other day, and they add a little bit of personality where there was a gray box, and sometimes with a little bit of markings on them, or just get old and gray, and now they've got a splash of color and art, and really kind of capture the imagination of the folks around the community, and they're popping up everywhere. So Gary, thank you so much for that vision and following through with it, and I'm looking forward to boxes appearing throughout the community. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Duclos.
I just want to thank the students for your artwork in the hallways. I always look forward to what the new things are going to be, and I hate it when the pictures are taken down and it's several days before we have anything replacing them. It looks so barren. And you all do wonderful work, and I've actually ended up buying some pieces and taking them to my home. The other thing is, I do want to thank Gary for doing the wonderful decorations of the ugly boxes that we used to have in Federal Way. And every other city still has ugly boxes, but we have these. They are so cute and so bright, and just makes you feel good when you're driving down the street. Even if you've got a problem on your mind, you see one of those things, you go, oh, that's so nice. So thank you very much for the wonderful work you do.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you once again, and congratulations to those folks and participants. The next item on the agenda is recognition of Pastor Rick Miller and New Hope Christian Fellowship Church. And I wanted to...
You missed one.
Item B. I did, okay. All right, so we'll go back. Item B, sorry. Item B, Proclamation, Arts Education Month. I already checked it off for some reason. All right. Deputy Mayor Honda to Mary Gates, President of the Federal Way Performing Arts Foundation. Deputy Mayor Honda.
Would former Mayor Mary Gates and former Mayor Jean Burbidge please come to the podium? And Sherry Song. Why don't you all come? And I'll read the proclamation when you arrive. So this is for Arts Education Month. Whereas the arts, including dance, media arts, music, theater, and visual arts, are defined as a core subject in Washington State's definition of basic education and considered an essential component of the complete and balanced education for all students. And whereas learning in and through the arts enables students to develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills, imagination and creativity, discipline, alternative ways to communicate, and cross-cultural understanding, which support academic success across the curriculum as well as personal growth outside the classroom. And whereas imagination and creativity are increasingly understood as critical capacities needed for success in the 21st century workforce. And whereas the arts can transform our schools into havens of creativity and exploration, places where students want to learn, teachers want to teach, and all members of the learning community are more engaged and motivated. And whereas high-quality school-based arts education involves a wide range of partners, including school boards, district administrators, educators, parents, artists and art organizations, community members, and local businesses and organizations. And whereas we applaud the efforts and dedication of arts educators around the state, and we call for school and community leaders to continue to broaden and strengthen their commitment to provide arts education for every student in every school. And now, therefore, we, the undersigned mayor and council of the City of Federal Way, do hereby proclaim May 2018 as Art Education Month in the City of Federal Way.
I would like to introduce I'm Mary Gates, the president of the Federal Way Performing Arts Foundation, and to my right behind me is, of course, former mayor and, of course, your most recent deputy mayor, Jean Burbidge. Sherry Song is our vice president and secretary of the foundation, and Cindy Panette is treasurer of the foundation. So I'm glad that they're here to join me in accepting this proclamation. You must have been anticipating the article that was in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but I would like to refer it to you. It's an article about artificial intelligence, which you might say, well, what does art have to do with that? Everything. Because as it talked about how you can be able to press a button for anything, that you won't be able to think and you will not be creative. And one of the solutions for keeping children robot-proof is how this article stated it, is to have your young people participate in the arts. So to those young artists who are here tonight, thank you for becoming robot-proof. I appreciate it. And we don't want anybody who can do more than press a button in this area. We want you to be critical thinkers. So we're excited about the fact that this is a community that really can become what I call a creative community. And the foundation is an outgrowth of the Federal Way Performing Commission for the Performing Arts, and it is 1 year old, believe it or not, in March of this year. And we have so far done two things that we're excited about, one that's coming up, but one that we've accomplished. And that is, we held a gala as a fundraiser to support a program called Arts for Youth. And that program brought elementary students from the Federal Way District to our Performing Arts Center. Numerically, over 2,700 students were brought to the Performing Arts Center 2017, 2018. And I attended one of these, wanting to always be a kid myself, and they were wonderfully behaved and engaged, and they had teachers who used the materials that made all of these programs fit the core program for the state of Washington so that they could be integrated into the learning that happened. We've had a great partnership. Kate Dorr is the person who is part of the PAC, who does the coordination with the school district, and Michelle Pentecost is the person with the school district who has made that all possible. So we have a really good partnership with the people in the school district as well as our educators. So to thank our educators, the foundation is also helping to sponsor Educator Night, which is being held May 9th this year. And so it's coming up as a thank you, and we're giving some money toward the reception that we have Wednesday evening, 5:30 to 8, to thank our arts educators, because sometimes art's a little more messy than some of the other subjects that people engage in. I don't know if any of you have ever been in a quartet practicing in a hallway or a stairwell and caught heck for it, or if you were doing a very loud presentation of Shakespeare when someone else from another classroom didn't like it much. But quite frankly, it can be messy and it can be a little obtrusive as well. So we really appreciate our arts educators. But the foundation will be having another gala this next year to finance our next work with Arts for Youth, because we have a much larger district than 2,700 students, and we want to make sure that the facility is available and made available for all of our residents here in the school district. So that's our project. Once we're done with that, we'll be looking at other things that we want to accomplish to make sure that the Performing Arts Center is an opportunity for everyone to engage in the arts. Thank you for your support.
Together?
Scrunch together.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very, very much for the work you all do and for the impact you've had. Okay. Now it's time for item C, which is recognition of Pastor Rick Miller and New Hope Christian Fellowship Church. And we cannot begin to thank Rick enough, but his wife Eileen is here as well, and she's part of this, and they're a team, and the entire team at New Hope Christian Fellowship. So Rick, if you can come on down, and Eileen, okay, all right, okay. And Rick is here, but I did want to say thank you so much, Eileen. You know, things like this are a partnership, but I want to talk about partnerships. And the person sitting right to my left, Deputy Mayor Honda, was a great partner, along with our great community volunteer, Sherry Edwards, who co-chaired the HMCI, the Homeless Mothers and Children Initiative. And I want to thank personally Deputy Mayor Honda, Sherry Edwards, and all of the individuals, Yarden Weidenfeld, who helped staff it, and the other folks here on our city, Jeff Watson and Sarah Bridgeford in human services work. It takes a village, and let me give a little bit of background, Rick, before we get there. And we started talking about the most vulnerable in our community, and oftentimes we think in terms of triage. What are the absolute most important or the critical issues before we get to the broader issue? Homelessness is an issue that this community and this region and this nation, frankly, is dealing with for a variety of issues, a variety of reasons. When we were taking a look at addressing the short-term and immediate and urgent needs, we really focused in on the gaps in coverage, and that was homeless mothers and children, and we began an initiative before we started the larger work that we've done now. Deputy Mayor Honda and Sherry Edwards and her group, and Sherry is a longtime committed registered nurse here in this community and does a tremendous amount of volunteer work. But it really took a lot of effort because what we wanted to do is get kids out of cars and get people, making sure that kids were not separated from their mothers and parents, and there were just gaps in certain services. We have a tremendously generous community and faith-based organizations and civic organizations and public entities. And so community action agencies, like the Multi-Service Center, of which we're fortunate to have Councilmember Duclos, who was the executive director there for 16 years, 18 years? 16. And she recruited me, can you believe it's been over 20 years now, recruited me to be on that board.
Yeah, he was so thin then.
Okay, we're going to be honest. So, always. It just got a little hot in here. But I do want to.
You're turning red.
Exactly.
I get the same treatment, Mr. Mayor.
Exactly. But I want to say that as we were really searching for a place to have the Homeless Mothers and Children Initiative, an angel of our own and his family and his congregation stepped up, and it was Rick Miller. And he opened his doors up, and it was a room in which, I'd say 11, 12, sometimes 13, 14 people can gather in some cots, but it meant the world. And every time myself or Yardner or a staff member would show up, Eileen was cooking something on the stove, and they opened up their church, and they had showers, they really opened it up like it was their home. And I just want to say, on behalf of a thankful community, I have something I'm going to read here in a second, but this is unscripted, Rick and Pastor Miller. And I just want to say, on behalf of a grateful community, thank you. And,
we are blessed to have been invited into that role. It is a passion, not just for my family, but for our congregation. This last winter, my wife worked double the hours any of us worked. I want to thank the church troll for working 3 to 8 a.m. He is somebody who's been with us for 10 years. He'll be blind in another year or two, and he does not want to do anything but volunteer and spend time at the church caring for people. I want to thank Elric. He really went above and beyond and took a bullet. When he came to volunteer at the shelter, he lost his housing. Thankfully, he's one of our kids, so he came home to roost. He ran the shelter. I want to thank Marine View Presbyterian, the New Bethel Temple Church, and the Puerto Rican Pentecostal Church. Without those three churches participating, we would not have had the space to be able to do the shelter. They gave up part of their lease rights in support of this. We look forward to being more effective and more creative and a bigger benefit and blessing to our Federal Way citizens in the future. We want to say thank you for thinking of us, and I want to say thank you to Ms. Honda and to Sherry for going so far as to come and harass us twice to get us to look at doing this. It was a blessing that they were sticking to it and not giving up. We are very glad to have been in this role, and on behalf of our church family, thank you. We're glad to be in Federal Way and to have this be our fair city.
Thank you, Rick, and I've got some certificate of recognition language. I'll read this, and then as I'm heading down, actually, Deputy Mayor Honda, did you want to say a few words? Go ahead, please.
So I had to, excuse me, write this out because to me, you're more than a pastor, you're a hero. So I want to say thank you, Pastor Rick. You're a hero in my eyes for opening up a family shelter. You know, it's such a horrible thing to think of children sleeping in cars and tents and maybe sidewalks. And in our country, it shouldn't happen, but in our city, and to think that it happens here is just heartbreaking. And the first time it didn't happen with your church, and we understood why. The second time, you went ahead and did it, and you're just a hero. You were, long before anyone thought of a day center, you had a day center in your church. You and your family have reached out to those who have needed help in this community for many, many, many years, and very few people know of what you've done. So I want to say thank you very much, and you're truly a Federal Way hero, and just thank you. I slept better at night knowing that some of our kids were off the street because of you guys. Thank you.
I slept better knowing they were as well. And for you, from me to you personally, thank you for your investment in doing this, in coming and asking us, and most importantly, for caring.
Okay. So I've got a certificate. I'll read it. I'll bring it down, then we're going to do a big group picture. We're going to have the council come down. So, certificate of recognition presented to Pastor Rick Miller, New Hope Christian Fellowship. On behalf of the elected officials and citizens of Federal Way of Washington, in recognition of his years of service on behalf of our most vulnerable community members, and in particular by providing nightly shelter for our homeless families with children throughout the winter of 2017 and 18, dated this first day of May 2018, and signed by the mayor and all 7 city council members. Thank you, Ray. You guys, we're going to do one picture here, and then let's do a big group picture out in front. You better be here. Absolutely. All right, let's get out of here. Okay, guys. So Rick and Eileen, Sherry couldn't be here, but she wanted to send her regards. Thank you so much. Okay. All right, now we're going to hear from our Finance Director, Ariwoola, regarding the preview for the 2019 budget, and this will be a briefing.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council. This is just to give the council and the citizens a little bit of information that we know today as what we're looking at for 2019 and 2020 budget, with the hope that with this information, that will guide us in the decisions that we're making as we get ready for the biennium budget. These are the items that may affect the 2019-2020 biennium budget. The health insurance premium, the retirement rate contribution that we make on behalf of our employees to the state pension plan. Also, the decision that we've made on the 2018 budget amendment. Also, the 5 additional police officers that we will be adding to the city's staff. Teamster and Guild union contract that we have in place. And of course, the SCORE, which is the South King County Correction Facility. As of now, we know that our health insurance premium will go up by about 15%. The good news is the health insurance is actually, we're self-insured. And over the past 4 years, compared to what we've done in prior years, we've done really, really well. I think for so long, health insurance was, premium was actually going up 15-20% annually until the city decided to self-insure in 2014. And since then, we have a minimum of about 5% increase, which has been really very minor. And of course, you know, because we're self-insured, we've also been able to create reserve fund balance in that fund. So with that 15% increase, we're looking at about $240,000 for now, $240,000 that we pay monthly, and that boils down to about $2.9 million annually that we pay in premium. If that goes up, that is just the employer's portion. The employer usually pay about 10% of the premium. If that goes up 15%, we're looking at about $433,000 increase over our 2018 budget. So if revenue is not increasing, that will be a great burden on the city in 2019 and of course in 2020. Also, we know that the retirement rate contribution also will be going up. This is the contribution that we make on behalf of our employees into the state retirement system. You know, we have 2 retirement systems, one's for PERS, that is for non-law enforcement officers, and the other one is left, and that is for law enforcement and firefighters. You know, PERS will increase from 12.7 to 12.87. So we foresee this being a total annual increase of just about 12,000. PERS will decrease, so that is a little bit of a good news. But I think that decrease may actually be absorbed by the whatever the negotiation in Guild that we have for 2019. If the salary remains the same, yes, there's a chance we will save about $17,000. If the Guild agreement result into higher COLA, that $16,000 may actually be easily wiped out. Some of the things that are in 2018 that will also affect the 2019 and beyond. As part of the amendment to 2018 budget, we're taking about $300,000 from the general fund reserve to balance 2018. Based on the current policy, we need to be able to replenish that within 3 years. So that means, you know, we need to find a way to replenish that within the next 3 years. That is there. Possibility of a shortage again. So if we're using fund balance to balance 2018, there's a very, very good chance that we will have to borrow money again to balance 2019. Replacement contribution of 5 new cars. We're adding 5 new cars in 2018. Because we're adding that, we also have to increase our replacement contribution because maybe 5-7 years, we will have to replace those cars again. So that is additional future, cost that is coming down the pike. Those are the decisions in 2018 that we're making today that will have an impact on what we do or impact on our 2019 and 2020 budget. Then, of course, the 5 new police officers. Yes, I think based on what we're proposing, the 5 officers will not come on board until July of 2018. But come January, if we were to do that, we will have those officers in place for a whole year. So city is responsible for 40% of their costs, and that amount to about $200,000 at the current salary rate. So any adjustment to their salary, of course, will make this number different. After 3 years, we will be responsible for 100% of the cost. So that is something that the council needs to keep in mind. So with that number of officers, we are looking at maybe about $500,000 a year. Equipment and operation cost. Of course, with those 5 new cars, we have to maintain them, we have to fix them, gas and oil. So those are additional costs that go along with those 5 new police officers. The union contract, that is also the things that will affect our budget in 2019. As of now, our Teamster contract runs through the end of 2019. That means just right, when we're putting the budget together, their salary will go up by 2%. For the guild, we're negotiating that. We don't know what that will be. For 2018, they have about 3%. So, but we haven't negotiated for the 2019. So I'm not sure what that will be. But whatever that rate is, Guild being the largest workforce for the city, it will be substantial. The conclusion is, based on what we know now, our spending and budget requirement will increase next year. So that means our spending will go up. We may have to use up to $1 million in the fund balance to balance 2019 and $1 million to balance 2020. The city, we need to prepare for this. The mayor has told me that in no uncertain terms will he use fund balance to balance 2019 and 2020. Neither will he present to you an unbalanced budget. So what that means is, if we're not having unbalanced budget and we don't have adequate revenue, there may be some major reduction that may follow. So just before we go too far in 2018, I think it is important for the council and the public to be aware of some of the challenges that we're dealing with. And now we'll be glad to answer any questions.
Dave, before we get started on that, could you tell everybody, I know that we've got the budget calendar out there. Where can they find the budget, and what did we add on May 29th?
The budget calendar is right on the web page of the city. As if you go onto the city's website, click on the finance department, and you see the budget document. If you go into that budget document, it's the first item on the left side. On May 29, we'll be going through budget guidelines and revenue options. The revenue option is for the city to explore what options are out there for us. What can we start talking about? What can we evaluate? Then in addition, in terms of, then we may talk about the budget responsibility, how we go forward from here on.
What time's that meeting on the 29th start?
For the May 29, I think it's supposed to be 5 o'clock,
5 o'clock. And here in council chambers, right?
right here.
All right, council, any questions? Councilmember Kopeng, then Deputy Mayor Honda.
Day, thank you for the presentation. Just circling back to health insurance, we're self-insured, which has allowed us to control our costs a little bit, but we do have a limit of exposure. Can you explain that limitation of exposure?
The exposure, because actually self-insurance is actually not a good explanation. We're partially self-insured.
Mm-hmm.
That is what it is. I think in order not to expose the city to a risk of somebody having a medical bill of $1 million, and of course you have two people with that, that can be a major issue. What we've done is have individual stop loss and aggregate stop loss. Individual stop loss means that when an individual medical bill reaches certain amount, say about $25,000, the additional insurance covers it. The aggregate stop loss does the fact that in any particular year, if our bill exceeds certain amount, that insurance kicks in. What that does, it protects the city to how much, under any condition, how much the city is exposed to. And as of now, also to be fully ready, according to the state guidelines for us and our consultant, we're supposed to maintain certain amount of reserve in the fund. As of now, we're doing really good. You know, we're doing reasonably good in terms of the reserve that we're supposed to maintain.
We've got it in one of our buckets, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
If we didn't have, actually, if we're not partially self-insured, what we have in the reserve will be in some insurance companies' profit and loss. So going self-insurance is a way, you know, to protect the city and reduce our costs as well.
All right. Deputy Mayor Honda, then Councilmember Tran, then Councilmember Moore.
Thank you. Are the contracts for the Teamsters and the Guild both up in 2019? 2020 would be a new contract?
Sid, I'm sorry, I'm hard hearing, so.
Are the contracts for the Teamsters and the Guild both up in 2019?
Yes, it's ending this year, so the new one will have to kick in 2019. So I think the city attorney and HR are getting started to start the negotiation. It usually takes, unfortunately, about a year.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ade. I do have a few questions. Question number 1 on page 3, the 15% increase in health insurance, how sure are we this is the right number?
Yes, actually, because we've been talking to them, last year, actually, they wanted to raise it for 2018, and we negotiated that, and so that is how we agree. And based on what we've talked to our advisor, it's certain that we will have 15%. The beauty of whatever happened with that 15%, because we are partially insured, if our fund balance, either because we're not paying all the claims that they estimate, the excess retained in the city, what used to happen? It used to go up 20%, 15% annually. That money is gone. Whether what they projected happened or not, it was gone. In this case, what they are projecting is, based on our claim in the past 3 years, we need to increase it. Even if we increase it, if we don't use it, it's still city's money, because out of that money, we're paying our own claim and we're buying additional insurance. So if we were to put in 15% increase on 2019 and 2020 turns out really good, the rate can easily be decreased again because it is our money.
Okay, follow up on that. Do our health insurance provide double coverages?
Does our insurance provide quality insurance?
No, double coverages. For example, so let's say, I'll just use the mayor, sorry. So the mayor worked for the city. So he got health insurance from the city, and then his wife worked for a different company. And she has different type of insurance, right?
Yep.
So what I mean by double coverages is that when he go to the doctor, he have to pay for the copay or things like that. Her insurance will kick over.
Yes.
You
Yes, we do. I think it would depend on the specific issues. Pretty much what you're saying is, if you go have an issue where the bill is $10,000 and the first insurance say, well, we only pay 80%. So they pay $8,000 and there's $2,000 left. If you have another insurance, will they cover that $2,000? I assume that is where you're going, right?
Yeah.
As co-insurance, yes, we have the ability for the co-insurance. But based on the plan, I think it depends on individual.
Right.
Actually, spouses are not covered if they have other insurance.
They're not.
They're not.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Okay. All right. Moving on to the next one. On page 6 and 7, they kind of related. You mentioned that the replacement contribution of 5 new police cars. Can you give us a rough estimate of how much are we talking about?
Mayor decided during the 2018 budget adjustment that instead of replacing our cars every 5 years, it would be 7 years. So what this would be, if we buy an average car, a marked car is about $60,000. An unmarked car is about $30,000 because of the equipment and the usually unmarked car can easily be a Ford Taurus. A patrol car is usually a Ford Explorer with all the bumpers and equipment and all of that in there. So 60,000 divided by 7 years is what would be an annual contribution for replacement. And of course, usually the car that we pay 60,000 for this year, we know in the past few years, by the time we're ready to replace them, instead of 60,000, it probably will be 65,000. So it will be about 65,000 divided by 7 per year.
Okay. Last question, slide number 9. You said that we may have to use up to $1 million in fund balance per year, beginning with 2019-2020 budget.
Correct.
With this $1 million projection, did we include the $300,000 we borrow, or is it in addition to that?
Actually, it will be in addition to that. And again, as of now, until we get into 2019, where the council decide we want to fund this, we want to fund that, it may be actually be higher than 1 million. Based on knowing that we will pay more than 400,000 on health insurance, and we know what is coming with a retirement and the COLA that may happen, that is how I estimated that 1 million. If other things come up, if you were to give, depending on what kind of COLA you agree to with a guild, that could be way more than 1 million. You know, if you were to agree to 3%, 4%, 5%, then as of now, that 1 million is strictly an estimate of what I know. And there's still plenty of things that I do not know.
Okay.
And just to reiterate that, my budget will not call for dipping into $1 million per year in 19 or 20. Just because we already have that $300,000 out, and we need to cinch up our belt, and so we'll find it. Councilmember Duclos and then Councilmember Moore.
Well, I just want to say that we need to look at ways to increase our revenue in this city. I mean, we can't continue to cut. because we won't be able to protect our citizens, nor will we be able to provide the services that they want. We might have to close our parks because we can't maintain them. So we really need to sit down and strategize about how do we raise revenue for the city. It's just like any business. You can't continue to operate at a deficit. You go bankrupt.
Well, we've got $1 million a year on the way once we prevail in the Lake Haven matter, and that's right. And that's down the road.
It's down the road. I think we need to start looking now, what else can this city do? And maybe we need to have some study session and bring some business people in to help us work on this. What can we do to bring more revenue into the city, especially with Sound Transit coming through, going to be taking out some of our businesses, so we're going to be losing revenue there.
Correct.
So,
We'll be looking at some revenue options as well. We want to be very careful, and Councilmember Moore, thank you very much for your patience. Obviously, we want to be careful. I think there is great tax fatigue out in the region.
I'm not talking about taxes. I'm talking about generating revenue, not tax revenue.
Okay, all right, well, thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Councilmember Duclos. I think it's important to differentiate those issues. Councilmember Moore?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I've been with you since the beginning, I think, of your tenure here, and I have to say that I sincerely appreciate your patience, your due diligence, and your tenacity in doing this. And I know that this year, it looks very different than previous years, obviously. These are just more generic comments in terms of this budget. I appreciate the update. I know that on the website, as you alluded to earlier, you tend to update the documents there under finance documents, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I would, again, this is great information, great questions, great comments, from Councilmember Duclos. But I really do believe that we need to start to utilize technology to get this message out there, and that's not happening enough. I have to say that before we even talk about revenue, we need to strategize and how do we connect with the public with their budgets. And that's really is important. And I'll talk more about that under my council report. But specifically today, with slide number 6, third bullet, possibility of a shortage again. Maybe it's just too early for me to ask the question, but the word possibility kind of comes to my, it's capturing my attention a little bit. Do we know? I mean, I know that you and the mayor and you and your staff, you guys number crunch every single day. What numbers have you come up with that is a shortage for the next biennium? I mean, so.
Yeah, the shortage I'm referring to is that same 1 million. But to
1
give
million?
you, yes, but to give you what the exact will be,
You don't know.
other variable are whatever it is that you agree to with Guild, whatever it is that you agree to with Teamster will change that number dramatically. And here's another kicker. I think one thing that I think the council and the mayor and the staff have worked on is scope. That is part of what really affected the 2018 budget. I think the staff and the mayor are working really hard to keep that ADP down. If we're able to keep that ADP down, that will also help a great deal. As of now, yes, is that 1 million based on the health insurance, based on the addition of those new police officers, based on the pension plan, and based on what you may do with those skills.
Okay.
If you do something more than what we've done in the past, you may actually be looking at a higher number.
I appreciate that, Ade. And the other question I have, because I think it's really important, is slide number 7. And unfortunately, there has to be a lot of repetition so that, I want to make sure I understand, I want to make sure the public clearly understands that our police officers, our safety of our community is our paramount duty, of course, and it's really important to a lot of citizens. So can you just kind of, I want to ask you to repeat it again, to summarize how COP grants and this kind of affects that and whatnot.
Okay. The way the COP grant works is they will fund those additional 5 officers 40% of the entry level for 3 years. For the past few years, based on what is coming before you, all of those new officers that you are initiating, that you're signing up, we have some that are lateral transfer. The contract says 40% of entry. So actually, 60% of the entry level. So if you bring somebody at lateral level, actually the reimbursement from COP grant may actually be less than 60%. If you bring them as a rookie, but the downside to rookie is, by the time you send them to training and all of that, I think the chief is here, he can speak a little bit more, you actually don't have them on the street either. So here you are paying salary for somebody, maybe for the first year, but you're not able to have them on the street. If you bring somebody on the lateral level that is trained already, ready to go, yes, you are paying at a higher price, but they're able to hit the street running. So that is where that is. After the 3 years, when the contract expires, the entire bill becomes the responsibility of the city.
Okay, thank you. We've got Councilmember Johnson, then Councilmember Kopang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, today you kind of answered the clarifying question I had. Really, the question was around with the COPS grant. That was last December 2017, right?
Yes.
So I remember you mentioned it was going to be about $900,000 for 3 years for that COPS grant. So I just wanted to clarify. So does that take into account this $500,000 a year? Is that after the 3 years, or is that?
What we gave you about 900,000 is probably the total grant amount.
Okay.
And when we draw that down, if we were to use all of, just like now, we are delaying hiring the officer until July. So that means we can roll it till the July, 3 years from now. When the $900,000 runs out, we're out.
Okay, great. Councilmember Kopang.
Aday, thanks again. The second question I had for you was on Score Jail on page 2 of your presentation. You mentioned that as an item that may affect the 2019-2020 budget. I think the way it's set up right now, we talk about average daily population and that being one way for us to control expenses as a city. I think the other cities that participate in SCORE have figured that out as well. And I know we have fixed costs that are associated with that. I just wonder if structurally there's a way for us to look at the SCORE jail financing so that we actually don't have the surprise we had this year and we've had in some years past that so dramatically affected our budget this year.
Mm-hmm. Actually, to a great extent, I'm not really so sure it's a surprise because the estimate for next year is usually based on the ADP of the prior year. So we may not know exactly how much it is going to be, but we can see it coming. So if we sign up this year for 70 ADP, and the payment that we're making is based on 70 ADP, if our regular ADP that we're actually having is hitting 80, 75, that is a sign that next year the bill is going to go up. Because the way they have it set up is usually based on from April through March is what they use to predict next year. So this year, because the ADP that we've been having are way lower than last year, I think that most likely, based on what they're putting together, our ADP will be lower, and maybe our total cost next year probably will remain about the same. That is for next year, 2019, because the budget is only 1 year ahead. If we do well in 2019, then 2019, if we start higher ADP also, again, it will affect 2020. So based on what we know now, most likely our cost and score will probably remain the same or a little bit lower because we've been maintaining a lower ADP. So I put this in there just to let you know it's another factor that will affect us. And 2019 may be good, but 2020 may be bad, depending on how well we're able to manage the ADP.
Thank you.
All right, council, any other questions? All right, thank you, Ade, great job. Okay, now moving on to emerging issues and mayor's emerging issues and report. We had the spring neighborhood connection meeting last Thursday. It was great. We had some of those pictures up. That's for the the picture that we have up on the screen now is for the Yes Network graduation that I just went to last week as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. That was a great meeting. We've got Yard in the back. We've got Lawrence Garrett with Advancing Leadership. And YES means Youth Employment Support Network. And the purpose is to create more opportunities for youth in Federal Way to obtain and maintain employment and give students access. It was a great program at Todd Beamer High School last week. And it really is about giving opportunity and skills to obtain their first job. And the great thing is we had a number of individuals, I believe one of the deputy superintendent of education was over there, and we were all asked to talk about our very first jobs and the first meaningful job. So I talked about my job moving furniture right after high school and what that experience was like, and other people were talking about different experiences and just talking to these young men and women as they think about entering the workforce. So it was a great opportunity to see those young people and to see what they had to offer, and they asked some great questions. And then again, we had the spring neighborhood connection meeting. We probably had about, that's the picture of there, that was at Twin Lakes Elementary. Had almost a fully packed house, so great questions. We had presentations from Marwan and from our police chief and myself, and council were there, and so it was a great opportunity to talk with our neighbors about upcoming events. There was a recycling event. We'll have a report from Marwan about that annual recycling event. Marwan?
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. I'm here to just give you a quick report on the recycling event that took place on April 21st. Notification of the event. Come on. All right. Notification of the event. We did a direct mailer to all of the residents within the city of Federal Way to notify them of the recycling event. And I'm assuming that everybody have received a brochure similar to this. We did an email to all of the apartments within the city, notifying the property manager of the event. We posted it on the city website and Facebook, and we also sent it to the Mirror, and I believe they added it to their Mirror calendars. All right. The PowerPoint is not cooperating. Part of the brochure that we sent to everybody is we notify them of what material that will be acceptable within this event. So you have electronic component that you want to get rid of, mattresses, appliances, tire, scrap lumber, shredding of any confidential documentation, household goods, styrofoam and packaging, peanuts, batteries, and also there was a donation for any tool to the South King County Tool Library, and also bike for kids. Anyway, so the next slide is what actually, how many cars we have received at that particular event. So we have 1,075 cars that came through, which is slightly above the average. The average about 1,011 cars that we had, 10-year average. The amount of material we received is 154,000 pounds, which is also slightly above the 10-year average, which is about 151,000 pounds. The recycling event, the funding for the recycling event, actually what we have is it's free to all residents. Nobody have to pay for any disposal of the material. The total cost per event is about $30,000. That includes the staffing time and all of the costs for the mailing. All of that cost, all of the $30,000 is grant-funded contribution. So we have 3 agencies that contribute into that event. We have the local solid waste financial assistance grant from Department of Ecology. We have the waste reduction and recycling grant from King County. And we have local hazardous waste management grant from King County. The next recycling event is September 22nd, 2018, and it's going to be from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Wild Wave parking lot. And what you have is a picture of the public works staff that staff the event. And I'm here to answer any question that you may have about the event. Mainly, Jeanette Brezentine normally take a lead on that event, and she mastered it to the point that we have a success every year during the spring and during the summer.
Councilmember Sefadawson?
Yeah, thank you. You said there were over 1,000?
We have 1,075 people who came in to the event.
So were they all Federal Way residents, or is it the whole neighborhood, the county?
In the past, we used to restrict it to only Federal Way resident, but because of the funding agency and the requirement of that funding agency, it's opened up to anybody. So we really do not check. As you come in, we don't check if you are a resident of the city of Federal Way. Again, it's being paid by King County and the Department of Ecology, and they didn't like the restriction to only to the city of Federal Way residents.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor Honda?
Thank you. I want to thank you and your staff. This is an amazing program, and I know people look forward to it for both the fall and the spring. And next September, you might not be there, so we'll miss you.
Now, my understanding, Deputy Mayor Honda, this year you were not able to make it because they reported to me that they did not see you. Normally you come in and then you stay quite a bit of time at that event. Being open to the public, if I have anything that to bring in, I might be bringing it to Federal Way, so you might see me there.
We had a number of events that day, and we couldn't get over there, so, but we missed you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Tran?
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that I used the event, and I was so impressed with your staff because when I pulled in, they recognized me. And I was like, what? I was very, very happy to see that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They have instruction to make sure that all council get the royal treatment.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And send along our thanks to your staff. Appreciate it. All right, to continue on with the report, we have Parks Appreciation Day at Celebration Park report by John Hutton, our Parks Director.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda, and members of City Council. I'm here to talk about Parks Appreciation Day last Saturday. It was a knock it out of the park grand slam home run. Thank you for each of you coming out and supporting that event. We had an unbelievable turnout last Saturday. Lots of very important, long-lasting work that will save us time and make us more efficient going forward was completed. So it was work that we couldn't get to, but will now save us. For instance, we removed all the turf underneath the fences on field 7 and 8. Now we no longer have to weed eat there at all. So that's hundreds of man hours throughout the course of the year of weed eating eliminated by being super efficient with unbelievable volunteers. This year's numbers were pretty crazy, 365 people. That equates to 1,095 man-hours of work. Unbelievable. Great people. We had a huge thank you to all the volunteers that came out, with 3 separate large groups that need a special shout out. These groups help us at all of our events, and we're very fortunate to have them, and we'd really be in trouble without them. They are at the LDS Church, led by Jack Walsh, just does a fantastic job, brings out the hardest working people you've ever seen, and they're all having a great time. Many of them stayed past the appointed hour to be done, which was much appreciated. We Love Our City, headed up by Shelley Pauls. That group is unreal. Shelley and her husband and all of those volunteers just work tirelessly. And this year we had a new outreach from Pastor Johnny at Church of the Blessing, who brought about 100 young people out there, and they worked really hard, had a great time. And then we had tons of community center members that came over in force. We had a lot of staff to come out on their own time just to work. And it was a lot of fun, so a huge thank you to each of you for coming out, Mayor and Council that were able to make it. Much appreciated that support, and it was just a really fun event, and we got a ton done. Dumas Bay made a nice hot dog lunch for everybody. I think everybody had a good time. The weather was just about perfect, about 60 degrees, no rain, not so hot that you wanted to be out on the boat. You wanted to be working at the park. So thank you all for coming, and I'm happy to answer any questions about what we accomplished that day or anything else you may have.
Anything, Council? All right, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Great work.
Thank you.
Okay, now in regard to other events that we've had, we had a great grand opening, or at least kind of remodel or reboot of the Rockwood Fired Pizza, and they had just recently joined the Chamber of Commerce. This is a Chamber of Commerce sponsored event, as was the ribbon cutting and open house for the MultiCare's Indigo Urgent Care and Mary Bridge Specialty Clinic. And that's over there by the Ram Restaurant in that area. And that was a great event, also put on by the Chamber. We had Advancing Leadership Youth Community Event. They talked about their efforts toward homelessness and presentations from all of the high schools here in Federal Way. And upcoming events, Federal Way Coalition Against Trafficking, Break the Chains, 5K Run and Walk. That'll be Saturday, May 19th. And then we've got opening day of the Federal Way Farmers Market on Saturday, May 12th. So come all to that. Okay, that's my report. Thank you very much, everybody, and a lot of great things happening. First we've got Betty Taylor, then Dana Holloway, and then Dennis Stiles. And Betty's got 5 minutes.
And that's it.
That's it, so far.
Good evening. The Low Income Housing Institute develops, owns, and operates housing for the benefit of low-income homeless and formerly homeless people in Washington State. They advocate for just housing policies at the local and national levels and administer a range of supported service programs to assist those we serve in maintaining stable housing and increasing their self-sufficiency. Founded in 1991, LIHI has grown to be one of the most productive, affordable housing developers in the Northwest. LIHI owns and manages over 2,000 housing units at 50 sites in 6 counties throughout the Puget Sound region. 80% of LIHI housing is reserved for households earning less than 30% of the annual median household income. LIHI provides a variety of supported services to help residents maintain their housing and develop self-sufficiency. Our efforts include providing residents with case management, life skills, training, technology access and training, financial literacy, training and savings programs, and activities for some of the more than 500 children in LIH housing. LIH owns and operates the urban rest stops, critical hygiene facilities for homeless individuals and families located in downtown Seattle, the U District, and Ballard, serving thousands of homeless individuals each year. The URS is designed to serve a wide range of people, including homeless adults, families with children, youth, and the elderly. Urban rest stop patrons include disabled persons, veterans, non-English speaking individuals, people of color. LIH in partnership, and I did say that word, in partnership with Nicholsville, Share, Will, the City of Seattle, the Lutheran Church of Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd, operates an innovative tiny house village program. And I did say in partnership. So LIHI could not do without the partnership of these other agencies. And what I'm talking about is tiny houses. Tiny houses cannot exist. They cannot, you can't do, not without partnerships. Okay, the village program provides warm, safe shelter, secure shelter in tiny houses and community settings with case management that helps residents find permanent housing and employment. LIH believes that affordable housing does not mean poor quality housing. We believe that innovative partnerships, innovative project development, and sustainable design features in affordable housing makes for a healthy, strong, and committed community. And I'll say this again, tiny houses in partnership with Nicholsville, Share, Will, Camp, Second Chance, the City of Seattle, Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd, and building trade organizations throughout the state of Washington. The Low Income Housing Institute is one of the largest providers of tiny house village shelters in the nation, ensuring that people's experience in homelessness is as safe, dignified, and brief as possible. Tiny houses offer tremendous benefits over tents. They are safe, weatherproof, and lockable. And the communities that we help build allow residents to reclaim their dignity and get onto a path of housing and supportive village environment. I know my time is almost up, but these tiny houses, they have electricity, they have overhead light, they have heat. And this is, we can't do anything without partnerships. And I know that the City of Federal Way is trying to do something now, but I encourage you to please look into this organization. We need partnerships. So look outside the city. This organization is here to help. They can be a valid partner in this city. So I'm going to leave this with, I'm going to leave this up here, but I encourage you, please look at that. It's important.
Thank you, Betty. Dana Holloway.
Hi, my name is Dana Holloway, and I would like to follow up on the mayor's comment that he responded to my comment at the April 26th Federal Way Neighborhood Connection at Twin Lakes Elementary regarding Transportation Benefit District, also referred to as TBD. Mayor Farrell said that the campaign on Nextdoor was presenting misinformation about the cost of the car tab fee and that it's hard to fight misinformation once it's out there. I agree. I also want to address it because there's a fair chance that the Transportation Benefit District, TBD, may be included in the 2019-2020 budget as a source of needed revenue. Mayor Farrell stated that Nextdoor misinformation was, instead of a $15 car tab, that it was going to raise the car tabs to $50. Or it could go up to $50 without a vote. And that wasn't true. It was just a $15 car tab. I would like to refer everybody to page D15 of the 2017-2018 biennium budget that gives the purpose and description of a TBD. Quote, TBDs may impose a vehicle license fee up to $50 without public vote. but a $15 fee is in the adopted budget, unquote. So the mayor was correct that it was a $15 fee in the 2017-2018 budget, and next door was correct in that the fee could go up to $50. The budget description continues with the following, quote, "The fee can be up to $20 with no conditions, up to $40, but only if $20 fee had been in effect for at least 24 months, and up to $50, but only if the $40 fee had been in effect for at least 24 months. Per that description," unquote, "per that description, the TBD may increase a vehicle license fee up to $50 without public vote over a period of time as short as 7 years, well, 5 to 7 years. The city could increase the vehicle tabs from $15 to $20 in the following year after it's been implemented or the next biennium budget. Then after 2 years, it could increase it to $40. And then after another 2 years, it could increase it to $50. Again, a TBD vehicle license fee increase can be done without public vote. But just because a tab fee could be increased doesn't mean that they will be increased. However, once a transportation benefit district is created, the door is open to increase the fee without public vote. Thank you.
All right, Dennis Stiles.
Hello, everybody, city council members, mayor. I'm just happy to be here. It's crazy because it's so easy to, tomorrow's not promised. So, for me to be standing here and be able to address you guys, it's a blessing. I got a chance to sit in on a financial meeting the other day, and it was very, very informative. I appreciate the council members that was there that welcomed the public. I met Dana there. She's very informed, and man, we need more informed citizens. It was a very informative meeting, and we just want to help inform the citizens. So part of that is what we do with my company, Rugged Genius, and we've done a couple of interviews, and we've kind of like low-key analyzed how you guys are projected. I look at all of you guys are very personable people, and I don't think maybe the public might not see that, so maybe some image structure and showing you guys in a good light on your channel, maybe like a little interview or something, and just letting people pass the elections and all of that stuff, just to this is who our representatives are. I think that they would be not surprised, but to meet you guys individually, to sit at the table at the finance meeting. We had Councilmember Duclos, and when you said that we need different ways to find a way to make money for the city, that's true. When I looked and I was like, well, how does the city make money? And then it was very limited. So to have good ideas from that, you had Martin coming with the passion of trying to include everybody. You had Councilmember Asafa Dawson, like as far as like the technical stuff, like you said like stuff that I didn't know, and I was like, man, I need to look that up. So it was just like an all-star team. Councilmember Tran talking about zero-based budgeting and things of that nature. I don't know anything about that stuff, but it made me go back, and I saw how informed Dana was, and I was like, man, we need to look at these things and get the public more involved and whatnot. So we just, from our media group standpoint and my colleagues over there, we're like, man, maybe we can help the city with the image and whatnot. And as far as how the information, we looked at the city council meeting. It's almost 4 hours long, and we're like, man, if you're looking at it on YouTube, you're not going to look at the whole thing. So if you was to chop it up in different sections and say, okay, well, I want to listen to this, I want to listen to the budget, or I want to listen to the public comment. These are just ideas. When you bring the public and get the public involved, you're going to get a lot of ideas, and you guys are our representatives. So at the end of the day, you take those ideas, you say, oh, okay, that was a good idea, that was a good, and let's run with it. The mayor clarified some things about how much the performing arts cost, and then where that money came from, and correcting, like somebody said, that when the information gets out, bad information gets out, we're spreading it, we're saying, oh man, we're hiring all these people, all these police officers, whatever. So just clarifying things and allowing the people to see and engage in the people, I think would be very, very powerful. So that's all I have to say. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, that's the last pink sheet I have. Thank you very much for a good citizen comment. Now we're on to the consent agenda. These items have already gone through council committee and can be passed at once. I'll read the items, and actually we will only have 3 items. Item A, the minutes for the April 17th, 2018 regular and special meetings. Item B, monthly financial report, March 2018, and C, vouchers, March 2018. Council, would anyone want to pull an item for separate consideration? All right, hearing none, Deputy Mayor Honda, do you have a motion?
I move approval of items A through C on the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passes unanimously, or the matter is passed unanimously. Ordinances, we've got the first reading, Council Bill 738, the 2017-18 Biennium Budget Amendment. First, we'll have a staff report from Ade Ariwoola, our Finance Director.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda, and Council. This is an amendment to the 2018 portion of the biennium budget of 2017-2018. A little bit of a background, according to RCW 35A-34130, the legislative authority of a city having adopted the provision of this chapter shall provide by ordinance for a mid-biennium review and modification of the biennium budget. This is Exhibit B, which is what you approved last when you amended 2017 portion of 2017-2018 budget. So that shows the 2017 and also show 2018. What we're presenting to you today is amendment to the 2018 portion. The makeup of that amendment is increasing the mayor's office budget by $6,513. That is mostly due to the salary commission recommendation. Economic development, that is pretty much the grant that we are getting from King County. And City Council, that is also due to the Salary Commission recommendation. The community development, the $86,060, that is mostly for the permit system, the grant expenditure, and the carryover of the human services contract that we have with some of our community-based organization. The public works for the $36,770, that is mainly to increase the fleet maintenance coordinator that we currently have at halftime, and we are risking, we likely would lose him if we don't increase his hours. So that is what that is. Then, of course, the police jail, out of that 856, of course, 678 is pretty much addition needed because of the score. And we're moving actually 2 police officers out of the general fund police to the traffic, because those 2 police officers are pretty much working in traffic. What that does is lessen a little bit the burden on the general fund and truly account for officers that are doing traffic patrol. Also, that 856 take into account the delay in hiring the 5 police officers that we talked about in my last presentation. So there's about 155,000 decrease in there. And also, we have the law department, which is mainly to pay for a little bit of money to set aside for the litigation for Lake Haven. So that is just being ready. Instead, yes, I'm not so sure how much that will cost in 2018 or 2019, but at least we need to have something in the budget to be ready for what may come. Then our park, which is 245,000, that is mostly for top dressing sand. I think about a year ago, you approved the acquisition of equipment to be able to maintain our field, so that otherwise you are looking at $750,000 replacement, when they totally fall apart. So this is to be able to use sand to make sure we are able to extend their useful life. Yes, also that amount includes, an additional FTE for the building maintenance worker and minimum wage increase that was passed, that we have to pay, but was never included in the budget. The 393, that is pretty much the operating transfer out of the general fund to support the Performing Arts Center. These are the makeup of the rest of the funds. The street fund, we are increasing that by 465. A major part of that is the revenue that we will receive from Sound Transit to staff a position that work directly with them. So that amount will be received from Sound Transit, so it's actually revenue or expenditure neutral. Arterial Street, that is pretty much for some of the asphalt overlay work that we need to do, both on the Southwest Campus Preservation Project, the 16th Avenue South Preservation Project. That is pretty much what that will help us do. And utility tax, that is the transfer from utility tax to the street. And also, when we close, which we will get to in another fund, when we close the TBD that was spoken to a little bit, then we have to use utility tax to support what TBD will have paid for. Solid waste recycling, then the special contract, that is pretty much the carryover from 2017 for the project that we did not get to in 2017. Community center, 89,000, that is to be able to actually make the community center use projection equipment, amplifier, wireless mic, all of those things that will make the building more marketable. As of now, we're having trouble where we're using the standard rollout projector, and some of the customers are complaining that that just is not cutting it. This is a one-time spending to further help increase the revenue source for community center. I think like Councilmember Yan pointed out, if we can have a one-time spending that will actually generate or reduce the cost down the road, that is an effort to do that here. Traffic safety, that is pretty much, as I said, we move 2 new officers into the traffic safety. That is part of the cost, and also planning to buy several other police cars out of this fund. So about 300,000 is dedicated to additional police vehicles, and require signage upgrade that we move from Fund 101 to street to traffic safety, because we believe this will actually help the traffic. That is what is included in the traffic fund. And REIT, that is pretty much a transfer from REIT fund, again, just to the construction projects like CIP project for HOV Lane Phase 5 that we are doing on Park Highway. Utility tax, which is a 300,000, I think that is pretty much to be used for, utility tax Prop 1 can only be used for specific items, so it can only be used on police officers, on courts, so that is what that is for. Performing Arts and Events Center, I think part of what is included in there is about 100,000 increase in the electricity bill, about maintenance service agreement for, maintaining the yard and maintaining the property. So, but all in all, that is what they are increasing their expenses for. And as I pointed out earlier, we are taking out TBD because that is now funded. That is why that is minus 930. So the amount that was budgeted in there to be spent, since we are no longer funding it, that needs to come out. Then the debt service, that is just to be able to pay our bills. Capital projects, parks, that is mostly, again, they are capital projects. They're just rolling the projects that we were not able to do in 2017 that we're rolling over. So it's pretty much fund balance. It's not additional revenue or additional spending. It's just items that we haven't been able to do in 2017 that we're rolling into 2018. Service, water management, that is pretty much the same thing. And transportation, all of this capital project, they are rolling projects. Performing Arts Center, that is the 1 million grant that we got from the state. In order for us to spend it, it needs to be included as appropriation in our budget. That is what, remember, this is capital project, it is not the operation. The enterprise fund, that is surface water, that is also part of their new, the changes that they are making in there. Risk management, because of that is mostly for liability insurance for the city because of the claims, some of the claims this year, so we need to increase that a little bit. Information technology, that is to be able to fund a lot of projects that the IT needs to be able to get to. But of course, all of that are being paid for entirely out of the IT. All of these, health insurance, we're increasing that. And again, that is being funded entirely out of those funds. And that is also out of, based on the conversation from last presentation, based on what they're estimating, we will spend 1.4 million more than we budgeted in 2018. So that is, again, part of the justification for the 15% increase that we're proposing. So adding those things to Exhibit B, that is how this Exhibit C is created. This Exhibit C is what is attached to the ordinance that is before you. Now I'd be glad to answer any question regarding.
Council, any questions? Councilmember Moore?
Ade, I'm kind of curious. I appreciate this. I know this is the first reading, so at the next council meeting, we'll do our second reading as well. And so I look forward to setting up a time where I can dig a little bit deeper into this and get a really clear understanding. But a simple question, and the chairwoman of the FEDRAC committee, she and I will connect after this meeting. But in this very format, this was not presented to the FEDRAC committee, correct?
Oh, actually,
in this very format of the budget adjustment proposal.
Actually, it was the ordinance that was presented to the FEDRAC.
Was it?
If I remember right.
Okay, the ordinance. Okay. Good, and I appreciate that clarity, because as you know, I'm no longer a member of that committee, so I don't know the absolute details, but, okay, thank you so much.
All right, council, any other questions? All right, thank you, Uday. All right, now, would the Deputy City Clerk please read the ordinance title?
An ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, relating to amending the 2017-2018 biennial budget.
All right, Councilmember Duclos, do you have a motion?
Yes,
Mayor, can we read the title before we take a vote?
Oh, I thought, I'm sorry.
So, Council Bill 738, 2017-2018 biennium budget amendment.
All right, great, thank you. And I had read it before, but thank you. Okay, Councilmember Duclos.
I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the May 15th, 2018 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the matter passes unanimously. Council reports, Councilmember Sefa Dawson.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the SCA Partner Forum on Recycling Revisited last week, and there was a panel talking about the state of recycling. And so there's structural changes, and especially that's been driven by China's ban of 56 items to come into their country as recycling materials. And so, and then the conversations was really around the contaminants that China is banning. So, the Northwest is more impacted by this ban. And so, recycling could potentially be modified. And so, the biggest takeaway for me from this meeting was one was that we want to make sure that every recycling, especially paper, is dry at all times. And so the biggest culprit, they said, were the big recycling bins that businesses have out there, or multifamily housing that don't close it. So if you see one open, that to go and make sure that either the property or the business close it, because that's a huge contaminant that is totally unacceptable. And also, they emphasized, when in doubt, throw it out. Do not recycle if you don't know whether or not that is a contaminant, because that's a huge issue. And one of the things that China is doing is everything that's going into China now is being inspected here in the U.S. and then also inspected in China. And cost is probably going to also increase, because the containers they use to send recycling here is usually the containers that bring goods here into the United States, and then they go back. But if the other countries take the recycling responsibility, then we don't have that leverage, and so it would be very costly. So I would like to see a study session on this at some point, and so I would really like to propose that, if we could talk about this and educate the public, considering the changes that could be affected. And then, on a light note, I would like to say a shout out to Officer Hanson. Last night I had a little situation with a mouse that wouldn't get off of my car. So I seriously came to City Hall because I didn't know what to do, to look for an officer, and he happened to be leaving ending his shift at 11:30. So he helped me out. He got rid of the mouse for me, because I was afraid if I opened my car, it would jump in and I would be stuck with it. So if you could please pass that on for me, I would appreciate it. And that would be the end of my report. Thank you.
To protect and to serve, you never know what kind of things our officers face and deal with, from a mighty mouse.
Above and beyond the call.
That's right,
That's a hard act for Jesse to follow, I think.
Exactly. But Jesse, let's give it a shot. Councilmember Johnson.
Nothing quite as funny, but I wanted to thank the Federal Way Youth Action Team for their work on Saturday. They had a community cleanup for a couple hours in the rain, and it was well attended, and I just want to thank them for their work they're doing for the community. Another informative meeting, particularly around the budget. And I know as we move forward, I just want to also thank my colleagues, because I think there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and we are doing our due diligence to look at all considerations as a council. I just want to, remind us of our revenue streams, economic development, and homelessness as our top priorities. as well as becoming the most safe, inclusive, and responsive city in the region. So those are what we came up with in our retreat. And so as we move forward, just looking into, all avenues for each of those things. Also, we will be, working with all the community stakeholders about what they want to see in the budget. I'm going to be working with Rugged Genius to host a youth forum on May 25th at Decatur High School and see what the youth think about the budget and things of that nature. So I think it's just important that we reach out to all of our stakeholders, continue to do our due diligence like we're doing as a council, and I look forward to, moving forward with the budget cycle.
Councilor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yesterday, April 30th, marked 43 years of the fall of Saigon. This is the day that myself and millions of Vietnamese lost our beloved country, the Republic of Vietnam. Shortly after the fall of Saigon, more than 1.5 million Vietnamese escaped from Vietnam and traveled across the Pacific Ocean and jungles in Southeast Asia to fight freedom. Only half of those 1.5 million made it safely to refugee camps and subsequently resettled all over the world. I was one of the lucky ones. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you, the American people, for opening your arms and heart and welcoming us here. You give these refugees and many other refugees the opportunity for a new life. I want to thank the 58,000 American soldiers who have lost their lives in defending our freedom. I also want to thank the Vietnam veterans and their family for your sacrifices during the Vietnam War. May time heals your pains and suffering, and may God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Councilmember Copeland.
Thank you, Mayor. We had in addition to the Parks Appreciation Day on Earth Day weekend, we had a few other events that I just had the pleasure of being a part of. We also had an event at the Bonsai Museum, and again, that is our Bonsai Museum. That is a community treasure. If you've not been there yet, you should definitely make it a point to get over there, especially with the beautiful weather that we've been experiencing lately. It is really a community treasure. Also, bought a new rhododendron at the Rhododendron Garden sale, and again, another community treasure that we have here in Federal Way that I think is easily overlooked. But with the Blue Poppy event coming up soon, if you have not been there, that'll be a great excuse to do so. Also, got a chance to participate with our friends over in North Lake, part of the Save Weyerhaeuser campus group. They did an Earth Day walk. My wife Lori and our two dogs, CJ and Ray, had a nice walk on a beautiful day, and certainly celebrated that piece of property as it currently is, but also just had a great time with the rest of the community that was there, enjoying it as well. So I also want to just remind everyone that Land Use and Transportation Committee meeting is May 7th at 5 o'clock, and look forward to seeing all of you that are here, that are interested in what we're doing with our roads and the infrastructure to come and hear it firsthand. So anyway, thank you.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. There's a lot to report, and I will try to keep my comments relatively short out of respect for my colleagues. My colleague to my left will time me. But a lot of important things are happening. I'll save some topics I want to kind of emphasize, but I'll go through the other ones first. Camp Kilworth, that continues to be a concern. If you're on the Friends of Camp Kilworth Facebook page, you'll quickly know that it appears that based on my observation, that things are kind of moving relatively quickly. And what I mean by that is They have now been instructed to clear all their items and historical aspects from that property. And so that leads me to think that something's around the corner. And I have to say to my colleagues and to the mayor and to the public that, you know, there are laws that we have to follow as elected officials, and our employees as well. But I have to say that it is incredibly difficult to sit up here and to potentially watch that property disappear. We all know, people that are listening and people that are here, we all know that open land is difficult to come by. And furthermore, open land by the water is hard to come by. And lastly, furthermore, historical land is hard to come by. And so it is incredibly difficult for me to sit up here and to watch it potentially disappear and potentially have it go to a developer, and we don't know. It's really important to know that we do not know. I don't want to misinterpret anything, but we don't know. And so I do thank the mayor for your patience, because I know I sent a little email asking to inquire. I appreciate Brian Davis in your update. You know, what's something that may be repetitive to you, it's still relatively really important information. And so I would urge that we put our thinking caps on and find out what are we not thinking and I know Yarden's good at doing that, but what are we not thinking about, you know, and how do we, what can we do to provide a phrase that's commonly used, a win-win situation. And that is a difficult conversation to have, and I look forward to having that conversation with our deputy mayor as well in the coming days, and my colleagues. So really important there. Secondly, Mr. Mayor, center stage continues to be a very important discussion item as we continue to discuss the contract, or I'm sure that's happening. And so again, I want to thank John, because I know him. He's an incredible man who cares deeply for the arts and for our youth. And so I know this is hard for him, but I want to reiterate, speaking for myself, that and this is for myself, walking away with no contract is not an option for me. And so I urge for there to be and I believe, and I'm confident that we are on track to create a win-win situation, because they're doing a lot of work that walk towards our mission and goals when it comes to our youth violence prevention coalition group and many others. And so, and I neglected to state that the board of directors for Center Stage, they have made major changes in their operations. And I appreciate their dedication to that as well. And I appreciate the emails that we have gotten, and I'm pleased to say that I have responded to the majority of them. Also, moving further, and so moving further, Neighborhood Connection was a good gathering. I have to say, to be honest, I was disappointed in the fact that I felt like it was a low turnout. With the issues that are going on, and Betty said it very well, when you give her a mic, she's on fire. And I have to say that I was anticipating to see, and hopefully, I was hoping to see more residents at the Neighborhood Connection. So I'm really hoping to see more people, because there's a lot of issues that are being discussed, and I don't want people to think that we're hiding things from them, that we're not out there in the open. And so it is important, and I do call on the public to continue to be engaged like you were 2 or 3 or 4 weeks ago. Also, just to reiterate, if you want to look at, read my statement as to why I voted the way I did for the utility tax, please go to councilmembermoore.com. This weekend, on Saturday, I had the greatest opportunity to team up with individuals to discuss panhandling. This is an issue that's gotten way out of hand And because of the things that we're seeing up north, we're seeing the effects of it right here. It is important for me to say that this is an issue that I've been talking about for a while, and I have been very pleased with the fact that I've been able to work with one of many people in our community, but one individual, Towne, Pagliacco, who's been heading up his side of things in terms of taking it to the streets. Sometimes, Mr. Mayor, policy isn't about paperwork and more words. Sometimes it's about getting your hands wet, getting dirty, and making a statement on the streets. And so I was really pleased with that, and I just want to publicly thank Towne for his efforts on that. And then last thing I'll say, and that's our budget. 2 weeks ago, we made the, I believe 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, somewhere in that time frame, we made a very difficult decision about the utility tax. We saw this room, 200 to 300 people here, and again, I'm working really hard with my colleagues and with the mayor to provide opportunities for more engagement from the citizens with their budget. So that way they know right along what we're doing, and so that no one is caught by surprise. That vote that took place on the utility tax thing taught me that we can always do a better job of getting the public engaged by utilizing technologies and getting to the public. And, like Dennis Stiles said, engaging with the public in the most non-traditional ways when we're talking about our budget. And so I just want to continue to urge that. I would like to still request for a budget town hall sessions. I think there's a value in that. I know in the city of Kent, the mayor's taking her budget on the road and is talking about that, getting in front of that issue. And I'm really, really impressed with that. And I still, Mr. Mayor, would like to see a link or an icon on the homepage where it talks about the budget so people can easily be more accessible to it. With that, Mr. Mayor, I will end my report.
Thank you, because you took half of mine.
And
Well, I will follow up on that one, though, okay? Because I talked about it in FEDRAC. We need to humanize our budget. We need to have people at home watching it, or people sitting in the audience, think about their home budget. How much do they earn? How much do they bring in? How much do their incomes cover? Food prices go up, clothing goes up, shoes go up, school things for children. We have the same issues, but it's different. We have people who want to be paid a salary. If their husband or wife worked here, they would want to have that person get a salary and get a raise, have benefits just like everybody else. When we talk about the budget, it's always in numbers, and I keep trying to say we need to humanize the city budget so people can relate to it like they relate to their own budgets at home. And so that's something I want to plant the seed up here. I've been talking to Ade about it and the FEDRAC committee members. But I really think that would help us let people know that we're not trying to gouge anybody, but we're trying to provide services that are needed for people, and if they want us to cut things, okay, where do they want us to cut? Do they want to have to apply for a building permit and wait 6 months to a year? And these are the things that we have to try to tell them, just like when you're at home and you don't get a raise, but all of a sudden taxes increase, not from us, but from your Lake Haven. So what do you do with your budget? You have kids in school, or you have other expenses. We need to humanize the budget process for the city, because the city is the people. That's what I just wanted to add that. I also attended the Community Connections meeting last week. I thought it was fairly well attended for such a fairly good day. And I thought they asked many good questions of people. Unfortunately, I had to leave a little early because I have a little dog and he has a schedule. And if I'm not home in time, I pay for that. Again, I said we really do need to do some brainstorming on bringing in new income to the city. And I'm not talking taxes to people. I'm talking about other ways we can generate revenue, because we can't keep cutting staff or not paying staff or keep taking things out of our fund balances, because that reduces our position to do other things in what we need to be doing. And last week, I found out, council member and I found out that we share the same hairdresser. So. That's why we both look so good tonight.
Yes.
And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Very good. And before I call on the deputy mayor, I do want to say that we took and there's the picture right there of the Neighborhood Connection meeting, and we took an official count of 90 people, not counting staff, that were present. But it does beg that, we're going to actually have another Neighborhood Connection on 2 weeks and a day from tonight. It'll be Wednesday, May 16th at Wildwood Elementary. That's Wildwood Elementary, 6 p.m. on May 16th. It'll be the day after our next city council meeting. Center Stage met with representatives from the Parks Department today, just so you know, and they were talking about different things, but clearly we've got the budget challenges as we've outlined. And the budget, just so you know, in regard to budget transparency and getting them out, I'll be providing, or the Chamber of Commerce, presenting my proposed budget to the Chamber of Commerce at their luncheon on September 5th. And so we'll make sure that we get out some of the other service clubs as well. So with that, Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. On Friday night, the Advancing Leadership Youth class graduated, and I was there along with council members Seth Dawson and Johnson, and that's always exciting. The Bonsai Garden that Councilmember Kopang was talking about has a new exhibit called Living Art, and it's there, I believe, through September, so, or maybe even longer, but it was really awesome to look at. Fed Factor is a district-wide talent show that started in Advancing Leadership Youth, and this is their third year. This year it's going to be May 12th, which is a Saturday, at Decatur High School at 6:30. Tickets are $10, and the tickets will all go, any money raised will go to two purposes that they're supporting. But it's really neat to see. We have very, very talented youth in our community, and when I have any opportunity to work with our youth, I jump at it because I learn a lot from them, and I appreciate all of their energy and what they do. They're going to take care of us when we're old and gray, and some of us are getting there pretty fast. Camp Kilworth, as Councilmember Moore mentioned, is changing hands soon, the ownership of it. And for me, it's a really sad event. Our family has spent many, many days and weeks and months there. My dream is that it stays as it is, as a camp, and that more kids and more families can appreciate it. Nobody knows what the foundation has planned for the camp, and let's just all hope and pray that they decide to honor Dr. Kilworth and his wife and their vision for what they wanted. And Tu Hong, my daughter-in-law, is a refugee from Vietnam. She was a baby when she and her mother escaped, and she spent 3 years in a refugee camp before coming here. And I didn't realize until just recently that only half of those that escaped made it. And I'm really grateful that she made it. She's an awesome person, and her parents are very great too. And so that was, anyway, thank you for your information. And that's all.
Thank you. We live in a great country, and we're fortunate to be here. With that, we are adjourned. Great meeting, everyone.